Unit 6, Lesson 8, Reasoning about Solving Equations. I can explain how a balanced hanger and equation represent the same situation. I can explain why some balanced hangers can be described by two different equations, one with parentheses and one without. And I can find an unknown weight on a hanger diagram and solve an equation that it represents the diagram. I can write an equation that represents the weights on a balanced diagram. Alrighty, so the first one says select all the expressions that are equivalent to 2 times x plus 3. So I'm going to start by actually solving this. So that would be 2x plus 6. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. So now I've got to look and see what gives me that. So this means times, so I know 1 is correct. All they did with this one was move this to the other side, so that's correct. 2 times x and then 2 times 3, that's correct. 2 times x, but they didn't do it times 3, so that's out. They did the 2 times the x, but they didn't do the 2 times the 3. And for this one, they said 3 times 2, so that would be 6, plus 3 times x, which would be 3x, which doesn't match. So my answer should have just been 1, 2, and 3. For the next one, it says, explain why either of these equations could represent the hanger. So I have two groups of x plus 3. So this is two groups of tells me to multiply x plus 3. And then this one is where it's actually been solved out. I'm going to use a different color. I have two x's, and then I have 3 plus 3, which is equal to 6. So you can do it either way. So explain why either of these equations could represent the hanger. Okay, so there are two groups of, I don't know why this isn't letting me finish my S, of x plus 3. And then the second one, there are two x's. And 3 plus 3 equals 6. Okay, choose one equation and solve it using the traditional method. So I'm going to go with the first one just because I think that's the one you guys are going to struggle the most with. So 2 times 3 is going to give me 2x, and then 2 times x is going to give me 2x, 2 times 3 is going to give me 6. So that gives me the same equation as the second one. If you look at it, this is just the next step. It's the next progression. So they're exactly the same. So I'm going to zero out first. So that means I'm going to subtract 6 on each side, so I'm left with 8 equals 2x. Then I'm going to divide by 2, x equals 4. So if I want to test it and see if I'm right, I can go back to my diagram. If I put a 4 here and a 4 here, 4 plus 3 is 7, 4 plus 3 is 7, 7 plus 7 is 14. It adds up, it works. All right, so now they want us to use hangers to solve the problems. Okay, so I'm going to first use the hanger, and then I'm going to solve it traditionally. So I'm going to take away 5, so minus 5, minus 5. So this becomes 6. Then I'm going to take 6 and split it into 2 equal groups, so each one is going to be 3. And then I'm going to check it. 3 plus 5 is 11. 3 plus 5, not 11. Good, goo, Katie, what are you doing? 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 plus 8 does equal 16. It checks. So now I'm going to solve it over here. So 2 parentheses x plus 5 equals 16. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 5 is 10 equals 16. I zero out first, just like I did in my diagram. And I'm left with 2x equals 6. So now I'm going to divide by 2 on each side because I want to figure out what the value is for one of the weights, one of the x's. So I get 3. For the next one, I'm going to zero out again. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm subtracting 200. Three times. So that's going to leave me with, what, 2,400? And I'm going to split that into 3 equal groups. So that leaves me with 800 in each one. So let's check it. 800 plus 200 is 1,000. So each one of these circles is worth 1,000. 1,000 plus 1,000 plus 1,000, 3,000. It works out. So now I'm going to do it using the traditional method. So 3 parentheses y plus 200 equals 3,000. So I've got 3y, and then 3 times 200 is 600, equals 3,000. So the first thing I did with my hanger diagram was zero out. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So I have 3y equals 2,400, and then I'm going to split into, so I can figure out for 1. I want to solve for 1y. So I'm left with y equals 800, which is what I came up with on my hanger diagram. All right, the next one, it says I still have to solve it out. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to subtract 1.1 4 times. So that leaves me with 7,654. And then 19, 18, 17, 16. So I have 16.4. And I'm splitting that into 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So that gives me 4.1 in each group. And I could use my calculator and say 16.4 divided by 4 to figure out that each one is going to be 4.1. So I'm going to test it to see if I'm right. So 4.1 plus 1.1 is going to give me 5.2. So that would be 5.2, 5.2, because each bundle is going to be the same, each circle. So I'm left with 8, 20.8, and that's what I had here. So it works out. So now let me solve it traditionally. So I have 4 parentheses z plus 1.1 equals 20. So I'm going to multiply 4 times z, and then 4 times 1.1, so that's going to be 4.4 equals 20. So then I zero out. That's the first thing I did in my picture. And I'm left with, I didn't line up my decimals very well, but okay, so I did something wrong here, obviously. So I'm trying to figure out which way I went wrong. I went wrong. Ah, it's because when I added here, I got 6, not 5. Goodness gracious. Okay, so I need to go back over here and fix it. See, it's really easy to make a small error and then you're just kind of stuck. So let's go back and start again. So I am getting rid of these first. So I'm left with 15. Here's my problem. I was right. Here's my problem. I was completely right. I didn't write my equation down correctly. It's 20.6 or 20.8. That's where my mistake is. Goodness gracious. I was really starting to doubt myself. Okay, so now I've got 4, and then 20 minus 4 is 16, and I'm left with 4z. Divide by 4 on each side. Z is going to be equal to 4.1. So I was right. There's nothing to worry about. Everything's right from on the other side. I just didn't write my equation down correctly. So the next one says 2/3. Crud. So I got to subtract 2/3. So 20, because my denominators are the same, so I can just subtract the numerators. 20 minus 2 leaves me with 18/3. And then minus another 2/3 leaves me with 16/3, right? So that leaves me with 16/3. And I have to split that into 2 equal groups. So I'm going to divide by 2 over 1. So that means I'm going to have to use keep, change, flip, because I'm dividing fractions. So 16 over 3 times 1 over 2. So I'm left with 16 over 6. 6 goes into 16 2 times with 4 6 left over. So each W is equal to 2 2/3. And if I check that, two 2/3 plus another 2/3 is going to leave me with 3 1/3. And this is also going to be 3 1/3. So that's actually 10/3, because 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So that means this is 10/3. 10/3 plus 10/3 is 20/3. It works out. You got to love that they're adding fractions to this. So 2 parentheses, W plus 2/3 equals 20/3. So I'm going to start by using the distributive property, and I get 2W plus 2 times 2/3 is going to be 4/3 equals 20/3. So now I'm going to zero out. I'm going to subtract my 4/3 on each side. I have 2W equals 16/3. So now I want to figure out what it is for 1. So I know that I have W is equal to 2 2/3, or 2.67. All right, so now I've got practice problem 1. They want us to write the equation this time. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 groups of x plus 2, and that's going to be equal to 11. Then they want us to solve the equation. So 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 2 is 10. And that's equal to 11. So I'm going to subtract 10 on each side because I want to zero out. So I'm left with 5x equals 1. So now I have to figure out what just 1 is. So I have 1, and I'm splitting it into 5 equal parts. So that means that each part is going to be 1/5. Because they just want to know what's one of the parts. So I'm going to divide by 5. So x equals 1/5, or 2/10, 0.2. All right, so they want you to draw a hanger diagram to represent this equation and then solve it. Oh, goodness. Okay, so I've got my hanger. I know I have 5 x's. And then I have a 1/4. And then on the other side, I have 61/4. So I want to get rid of that first, or zero it out. So I'm going to subtract by 1/4, so I'm left with 60/4. Now I'm going to simplify this, so 60 divided by 4 is going to give me 225. So I have 25 because 60 divided by 4 is 25, and I'm going to split that into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. So each x is worth 5. Okay, so they wanted us to draw a hanger and solve it, or I could do it over here where I zero out. So then I divide by 5 so I can figure out what just 1 is. So that means I'm going to have to keep change flip. So that's 60 over 4 times 1 over 5. So that means 60 divided by 20. This is 15. Sorry guys. So x equals 3. All right, so now they want you to solve it. You can use the hanger diagram, or you can solve it traditionally, your choice. Whatever works for you. Then if you need help, obviously I had a little bit of trouble with my video today, but I promise that I understand how to do this. I'm just getting a little tired. I'm on video number 8 or something like that. The extra practice is on Khan Academy. Mr. Morgan does a help video, so if you'd rather listen to him teach it, check it out. There's a Study Buddy, and then Calendly. I have appointments on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays.